What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So today I've got for you the technical deep dive into Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev. I'm looking to get back on the winning track here. I am 3-1 in my predictions in these deep dive videos. I correctly picked Strickland to beat Fluffy, Charles to beat Max, and Evlev to beat Murphy, but I erroneously picked JDM to beat Carlos Pracha, so hopefully I'll get this one right. I'm not going to spoil my prediction. I'll save it for later in the video. But quick, typical YouTuber stuff, like, comment, subscribe. The channel is starting to pick up here. And the more it picks up, the more I can actually give you higher production quality. I want to start editing, fight footage and other things into these videos, get a better microphone, etc. And I need the channel to grow in order to justify that. So help me out. But in any case, I don't want to do a lot of preamble here. Going to be typical format. I'm going to break down the first fighter, break down the second fighter, and then discuss how they match up. When I break them down, I talk about their overall game. I talk about their strengths and weaknesses. I give some constructive criticism at the end, just some minor realistic tweaks I think they could make to improve. And then in the end, I give you my predictions. So all that said and done, let's get into it. I'm going to start with Khamzat Chimaev, okay? Obviously, everyone knows he's one of the top wrestlers in the sport, and that's simply true. He is, okay? I'm going to talk about his grappling first and his striking second, though I might bounce back and forth a bit. But starting with his takedowns, we all know that he has an insanely fast shot. He's got one of the fastest, just quick, drop level and shoot, double legs we've ever seen. And I've seen him, at points, it looks like a proper wrestling double leg. So what I mean by that is people realized that in MMA, you don't have to shoot as low as you do in wrestling. When two guys wrestle, they stand in very low stances because they know, and they stand very hard, hunched over, because they want to keep the hips away and they want to keep a low center of gravity. In MMA, you can only stand so low and so hunched over because of the striking. And since people stand higher and since people stand with their base more bladed, you don't have to crouch down as low in order to shoot on them. You don't have to get as low yourself in order to get in on their hips. And someone like George St. Pierre is like the patron saint of shoot fighting. He is the patron saint of takedowns in a striking context. And he didn't get very low at all. He would bend over at the waist, shoot in. He would not do the classic wrestler penetration step where your knee goes down to the floor. However, I have seen Khamzat Chimaev, I've seen still images of his shots where he drops down so low that he bends over and his torso is on his own thigh. He's taking that deep and that low of a shot. And he can hit that at speed with no setup on professional fighters. That's how quick he is. That's how athletic he is. That's how fast his shot is. I'm not the first to say this, but it might be the fastest shot we've ever seen in the sport. And he will sometimes just shoot nakedly. He will sometimes shoot with no setup. He'll just be there and boom, shoot. However, part of what makes him so dangerous and so effective is that he actually has a lot of genuine setups for his shot. The kind of easiest and simplest is he'll just pretend to punch. He'll just pump his hands and shoot. He'll just kind of, and just, then drop level and shoot versus just being here and shooting. He can shoot under your punches, which is one of the most tried and true ways to get a takedown in MMA. Get the other person punching, get them breaching, get their elbows and hands away from their body, get them committing their weight forward, and boom, shoot underneath. He also will use his kicks to set it up. So he will front kick to the face, and he will, he'll throw round kicks to the head as well. And both of those serve to, stand you up, which is very valuable. Like I said, you can only crouch so low, you can only get so hunched over in an MMA fight to defend the takedowns. But nevertheless, people will be a little bit more crouched, a little bit more hunched, a little bit more prepared for the takedown. But if you start boom, kicking up towards their face, boom, kicking up to their face, their hands have to be ready to be higher to deal with the kicks. And in terms of the front kick specifically, that discourages that low hunched over posture. That makes them want to be more up and more back. Excuse me. So he'll do that, and sometimes, so in general, that's just a good move to make their posture and their base less ready to defend and make their hands less ready to defend the shot. But he'll do it and then go straight into it. So it's he'll front kick and then shoot. Jailton Almeida does the same thing. So he'll do that, and he'll do something else, which I've seen him talk about in a seminar, and I thought this was like very, very good on his part. And I've seen him do this in fights, which is he will use kicks to actually push you away. So what I mean by that is he'll front kick you, and that pushes you away, that makes space, and he'll just kind of do that knowing that at some point you're going to be sick of being so far away, you're going to be sick of getting pushed back and pushed back, you're going to finally step in and encroach, and he's waiting for you to step in to do that, and boom, shoot. So he's got those. He's got like the classic MMA setup for a takedown, or at least for a single leg, which is if you're in an open stance. So if you're southpaw and they're orthodox, or if you're orthodox and they're southpaw, you duck low, throw the overhand with your back hand, and you reach for the single leg. I've seen Khamzat do that out of both stances, meaning I've seen him do that. It's in both cases, it's an open stance matchup, so he'll be right leg forward, they'll be left leg forward, or vice versa. But I've seen him do it both. I've seen him do it this side, and I've seen him do it this side, do that overhand to single leg setup. So again, as much as he is an athletic freak, as much as he is insanely fast, as much as he has the fastest shot we've ever seen, and as much as he will just shoot naked on occasion, he also has a lot of setups. Okay, so that's very difficult to deal with. Okay, that's, as much as his striking leaves a lot to be desired and looks very unschooled in some ways, more on that later, as much as that might be the case, he's not a fool when it comes to setting up his shots. Okay, he knows what he's doing. He's not just a freak. It's not just that doing the heavy lifting. So that's how he sets up the takedown. As far as the takedowns themselves, he'll do different things. So he will do the classic double leg where you step in, you head on the outside, you cut the corner, you take him that way. He'll do what I call the like wrong side double leg, which is where if I shoot and I'm in like this, my head's on this side, if their hips are here and my head's on this side, typically I want to cut and take them that way. But another thing you can do is actually do more of a Morota Gari, more of a sort of judo version of a double leg, which Gari means reap. So if you've heard like Osoda Gari, Ouchi Gari, the Gari means reap, and the reason it's called Morota Gari is because you're reaping with your hands. So it's more about pushing in their hips and like about pulling the legs out from under them. And that can be done where you like, instead of cutting the corner and sort of picking them up and dumping them with the double leg, you instead pull them this way and just do almost like a run the pipe on a single leg where you just yank the feet out from underneath them. So I've seen him do that. I've seen him shoot really low on like a low, almost like a low single leg, but I've also seen him shoot very low on the double leg against the fence and go for like that ankle pick on the far leg. But anytime he shoots low, he's basically looking to do two things. He's looking to either come up on the body lock, or he's looking to come up on the single leg, and then he's ready to come up on the body lock from there. Because often what will happen is he'll shoot in, he'll come up on the single leg, the person will turn away, they'll try to limp leg out, which is classic single leg defense, but in turning away, they're giving him their back, and boom, he just comes up on the body lock. And once he has that rear body lock, you're kind of screwed, okay? Like he has a great system for breaking you down. So for one, he can just do the classic showboaty thing of like pick you up, carry you across the cage, make a big show of it, dump you. But when he's fighting more intelligently, and what you see him doing more now is he'll threaten to do that. Like he will threaten to just kind of hoist you up. Like he will hip into you like he's going to take you backwards, and that will encourage you to lean forward. Like he did that to Robert Whittaker at one point. It looked like he was going to like boom, take him back. That makes Whittaker lean a bit, and that gives Khamzat the opportunity to then start taking him forward. So what he's looking to do is if you're on the feet, he just wants to step around your leg, block, and drag you down. Just be heavy, just sag on you, drag you to the floor, drag you to the floor, drag you to the floor. And he's got trips as well. Like he'll hit the Kosoda Gake, the outside leg trip, the classic body lock trip. He'll hit that, he'll, like sometimes he'll hit other trips as well. So like if he does actually get that single leg I mentioned, like if you don't limp leg out of it, he will sometimes like hike the leg up high and do the sort of kouchi, the cross side inside trip. So he'll take you down that way like he did that against Gilbert Burns. But once he gets you down, he does a lot of the things that we've come to expect from these like Caucasus region wrestlers. But his system is extremely good and extremely, like, I don't want to say foolproof, I don't want to say impossible to beat, but it's very complete. So he's largely looking to do the leg right. He's largely looking to be in that situation where the person is turtling, you know, they're on their hands and knees, and their one side is to the fence, and he gets the one hook in so he can ride the leg. Once he gets that, one thing he really likes to do, and that's very effective, is he will then get a single straitjacket grip. So for those of you who don't know, a straitjacket grip is like, imagine someone were on my back. You see this a lot in the jiu-jitsu context where it's a way to hand fight to set up the rear naked choke. Imagine someone were on my back and they had like that seatbelt grip and I'm fighting their hands, I'm trying to not let them choke me. If this is their left hand underneath my left armpit, if they took that hand and grabbed my right wrist and pulled it across like this, so imagine that, like this is my left hand and this is their left hand, and they're grabbing my right wrist like this to control it, so I can't pull away, that would be a straitjacket grip. And they call it that because if you had both of them, it looks like a straitjacket. He will get the single straitjacket and it will be on the side that he's leg riding. So what that means is, if he's leg riding this leg, he will reach around the waist and get a straitjacket grip on that same arm. And what that means is, he's on top of you, he's got a free hand. It's the free hand on the side that your arm is trapped so he can hit you with it. And you can't turn either direction because I can't turn this way because this straitjacket grip is restraining me. And I can't turn that way because the leg ride is hooking my leg and keeping my lower body in place. So that's a very dominant, controlling position, okay? Now, he has ways of dealing with it if he can't get that leg ride. So a lot of the boring kneeing to the thigh, kneeing to the buttock that you see in like the Dricus fight, that comes as a result of Dricus not allowing him to get the leg ride, not allowing him to get that initial hook in to ride the leg. So if you picture it, like if my leg is up here really high, I'm keeping my elbow and my knee close together to keep him from swimming his leg over. If that happens, what he does is he just keeps the body lock and he just starts kneeing the shit out of your thigh. And if that happens, like, there's a good chance you're eventually going to put that leg down and then boom, he gets the leg ride. Or if you stand up with it, if you say like, I'm going to weather the storm and I'm going to find a way to stand up to use this high leg to stand up, to generate the force to stand up. If you do that, what he then does is just rinse and repeat. He says, okay, well, you're up again. I have the rear body lock still. I'm going to step in front and I'm going to mat return you. And this just keeps going. It's like he gets you down, he gets the leg ride, and if he does, he can do all sorts of things, worst of which being get that straitjacket grip, start punching you. If he can't get the leg ride because you're like keeping your knee high, he'll just knee the shit out of your thigh. And if you are able to stand up regardless of that, he will just step in front, take you forward. And if he feels like you're not going to give him that, he'll be behind you, he'll threaten to lift you and dump you, you'll then lean forward, again like Whitaker, and then he'll step in front of the leg and he'll mat return you. So it's like, it's very much a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of system. Now, he's satisfied to just do that. He is satisfied to just punch the shit out of you from that position, but he will also take the back. And he's willing to climb in. He'll get hooks in. If he gets hooks in and feels comfortable, he will seek the body triangle. So we got that on Kamaru Usman. He nearly got it. He was looking for it against Robert Whitaker. But one thing he'll do as well is more of like he'll attack the back, but in a more classical wrestler kind of way, a more classical back ride where, and if I think about it, I'll link a video from Brian Peterson, who is a great grappling coach and has a great YouTube channel. I'll link a video of him showing this specifically if I think of it. But in any case, what he'll do is, like, imagine you have someone on all fours. Imagine I'm in that referee position, that turtle position where I'm on my palms. He will get on your back and he'll get his hooks in, but instead of hooking the inner thighs, he'll do the classic wrestler thing where he'll put the balls of his feet on the floor and then he'll drive into you. And then once he's doing that, once he's kind of taking your weight off your heels, off your hips, and putting it onto your palms, which are on the floor, he will then reach over and try to pull those posts out and break you down. So he'll do that. again, if you kind of roll to your side, if you start standing up, he'll look for just typical Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back control, which is, the body triangle. And from there, he's looking for his chokes. Now, his chokes, on the one hand, I like it. Like, I like the degree to which he just swims and cross faces. He will just do that to your face on both sides. And he will try to choke over the chin. And sometimes he's doing it where it's the much more unpleasant, like, bony part of the forearm into the pressure point above the teeth. And of course he broke Robert Whittaker's face doing that. But that's all just sort of a mean way to set up the choke. On the one hand, it's not very sophisticated jiu-jitsu. And I'm going to discuss his actual jiu-jitsu abilities soon. But on the other hand, it's very practical. So, like, my main base is Japanese jiu-jitsu. It's a full contact, very rough Japanese jiu-jitsu. Every time I've ever trained Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I've had to tone down my roughness out of pure gym etiquette, because stuff that's acceptable in the context of this very rough and tumble, full contact, sort of half judo, half part judo, part catch wrestling, part Kyokushin karate, Japanese jiu-jitsu I do. There's shit I do there as far as like using the crossface to set up the choke that is just bad etiquette in most Brazilian jiu-jitsu schools. However, and I've had discussions with guys about this, it's like, I'm not saying like going across the face and using kind of pain compliance chokes are viable at the highest competitive level, but using that stuff to set up the choke, I think is very viable. And in MMA, that's a real thing. Like in my third fight, as I used to be a fighter, in my third fight, I was actually on a guy's back. I had both hooks in, and I had a seatbelt, and he was sort of in like a quad pod position. I took my top hand and just put the bony part of my forearm under his nose and wrenched him up like that. And it was so effective that he went from like bent over in a quad pod to like all the way up and then flipped out and like turned and fell onto his back. That's how powerful and how painful that crossface was. And from there, I was able to turn him to his belly and just set up the palm-to-palm choke with it. So that's very real, and Khamzat does that, and I'm very fond of that. Like, I think that's a very practical way to set up the choke. And in many ways, it's better than the more sophisticated like hand fighting that you would learn in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu context in order to set up the choke. And you can get even more ballistic with it, especially in MMA, because if you're grappling and competing, you have to kind of hide this from the referee, because there's a lot of incidental contact, a lot of incidental impact, incidental but is deliberate in elite competitive grappling, whether it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whether it's judo, whether it's wrestling. Like, collegiate wrestlers, when they tie up, when they do like a mutual collar tie with each other, like, they're hitting each other. Okay, like if this is the other person's neck, they're not just grabbing the neck, they're like they're like palm striking the back of the neck when they tie up with each other. Judokas, like when they have the collar grip and they've got the sleeve and the collar grip, they are literally like hitting each other, like doing not soft, but like short punches to the neck and chin when they try to maneuver each other with that grip. Judokas will just knee each other in the balls. like they'll be looking for inside trips, ochigaris, kochigaris, but half the time it's just an excuse to knee the other guy in the cup. That kind of stuff happens. And in MMA, I mean, you can't knee him in the cup. You'd have to disguise that. But in MMA, you can, if you're going for that crossface to set up the choke, you can just actually like forearm clothesline them, boom, across the face. So boom, boom, get that choking arm in, connect your grip. Like, that's very viable. So that's actually, like I said, I save constructive criticism for the end typically, but I'm going to touch on that one right now. I would say double down on that if you're Khamzat, and don't even just go less for like the over-the-face cranks and chokes, and just forearm strike across the face enough that, boom, 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 in. Like that sort of approach. Like, that's so viable. like I feel like rear naked chokes are a lot more viable than people realize, because you can boom, just forearm fucking bash people across the face. And that's quite damaging. There's no pad. This is like this is a very hard part of the arm. This is the blade of the arm. This is like, this little piece of real estate on your forearm is one of the most important parts of your body in terms of grappling. So many submissions are done with this part of your arm, okay? So, that tangent aside, like, that's how he sets up his chokes, and it's quite effective. And obviously, he can just ground and pound you. He can ride you out that way. Against Dricus du Plessis, he, of course, used quite a lot of the crucifix, got a lot of the side control pin. That was more to do with Dricus just not knowing how to get out of there, to be blunt. And Dricus's grappling is quite good. It's just asymmetrical. His offensive grappling, his takedowns, his top control, his submissions from on top are just much better than his bottom game. And I suspect that just came from where he trained. He's probably one of the biggest guys, probably one of the best guys, one of the most athletic guys at his gym, and just not a lot of people holding him down and forcing him to, like, actually get good at pin escapes. So Khamzat was pretty easily able to get side control, and when he was, it was just basic setup for the crucifix. I love the crucifix. It's like my coach, my instructor, it's like one of his favorite moves. And yeah, just very basic. He got the side control with the underhook, grabbed the wrist, pinned it, put the leg over, crucifix, easy. And Dricus had no answer. And I think that's largely why you haven't seen that from Khamzat. Like, who knows? Maybe he'll come out and do the same thing to Sean. But, like, I think part of why you saw that so much against Dricus was just that Khamzat was able to get to side control, and he just felt that Dricus had no fucking answer. And all of a sudden, he's like, this crucifix move I've done forever, but I've never done in a fight. I could just do right now. It's easy. Like, I don't know that was so much a new development and leveling up on Khamzat's part. I could be wrong, but my suspicion, my vibe from just watching that fight and seeing how little Dricus had to offer in terms of resistance leads me to think that Khamzat actually just was having a walk in the park, and that's what was happening. But in any case, Khamzat's jiu-jitsu is weird because, like, again, like, his hand fighting to set up the choke, not very sophisticated. He will just try to do it over the chin. He tried to do that against Usman, and since Usman is a fucking gnarly, strong as hell wrestler, and his face wasn't, like, injured ahead of time like Whitaker, it didn't work. He was going for that Darce choke over and over against Holland, and yes, he eventually got it, but he, like, looked this close to just burning himself out in the process, and yeah, he was going for it when, from that basic kind of front headlock, as Holland would try to get up from the Granby roll, he would just hit the Darce choke. That's kind of a basic setup, And yeah, he was having a hard time completing it. Holland is legit, his jiu-jitsu is legit. It's so impressive to tap him out, but the setup and everything itself and the finish didn't leave me that impressed. And as far as, like, passing guard and things like that, I've not seen a lot from Khamzat that impresses me. Like, I've seen him just sit in people's guard, like he just sat in Dricus's closed guard for a big stretch of time towards the end of that fight. In the Usman fight, he is in Usman's half guard, and he's just holding him there. And I think this is round 3. But he's just holding him there, which is fine. Half guard is sort of a pinning position if you want it to be. But at one point, and he's aware of the underhook battle. So if someone's in your half guard, if say they're on this leg, they're in between, their leg is in between my legs and their outside leg is out here. There's an underhook battle on the far side. I want the underhook, they want the underhook. Khamzat was aware of that, and he was at points winning that battle, but he went to pass when Usman had the underhook. He tried to get greedy and take mount. He settled for side control. But since Usman had the underhook, he just immediately did a get-up. He immediately did a side control escape with the underhook. And it's like, that's kind of an obvious thing to not do. So, and yeah, I've seen the footage of Khamzat doing jiu-jitsu with Luke Rockhold, and he's working butterfly guard, and he's looking very good. So I know he's, like, good at jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying he never trains jiu-jitsu. I know he's at least a brown belt. And it's probably a deserved brown belt. It's probably not a fluff brown belt like when they gave Daniel Cormier one. But in any case, when we're talking, like, highest level, I just don't see a lot in terms of his jiu-jitsu that impresses me, to be real. Doesn't mean he can't submit you. I'm just saying he's submitting you more as a function of his athleticism, wrestling game, pace, and ground and pound. Like that's doing the heavy lifting. It's not his jiu-jitsu skill so much. That's my read. In terms of his striking, it's pretty bad. Okay, like he's got power. He is fairly durable. He's very fast. He's willing to scrap, which counts for something. He's not like a Bo Nickel type that way. He's got an eye for an opening. You know, like his best counter punch, you know, is the one that he knocked out Magomed with on the regional scene, where this is like a very old school, unusual counter punch, but it's a rear uppercut counter to the jab. So if someone just, you know, boom, throws that lead left jab at me, and I'm in an orthodox stance, if I slip inside the jab, I can. There's this pathway for this sort of relatively straight vertical fist uppercut, and he will land that. That's how he knocked out Magomed, and he's looked for that most of his fights. He's not landed it very well on other people, and it's gotten him in trouble. And that's a kind of dicey punch, because when you slip inside the jab in general, that's risky because the fear of the right hand is there. Okay, so like some boxing 101 for you, like what they teach you initially is 1-2 from the opponent and you slip outside, slip outside. Now, the problem with that's like good 101, just teaching you that you slip outside straight punches. It's a good opportunity for you to just drill your technique. But that's not a very practical way to slip in a real fight, because what often will happen is the 1-2 is not coming 1-2, it's coming blah-blah, like that. And you slip the outside punch and you move directly into the cross. You slip the jab, move into the cross. So a better thing to do is slip the jab, slip outside the jab, and then duck or pull away from the cross. So that's some boxing 101 for you. But like I'm saying, slipping inside a jab is a thing you can do. You can slip inside hook, slip inside, do all kinds of stuff. The cross counter is sort of a slip inside with a bigger duck, cross over the top. That's like one of the best, most bread and butter, most historically championed counters to the cross. That's why it's called the cross counter. So I'm not saying you can't ever do that, but I'm saying that slip inside vertical fist uppercut that Khamzat likes is risky. And in general, Khamzat's defense is terrible. Like, he'll eat every low kick. His high guard is constantly split. Like, he'll have his hands up. The other people's punches constantly split his guard. They constantly go around his guard. He'll do the kind of Rampage Jackson, like this kind of cover. And sometimes that works. You can do that against a straight punch. That's more of a counter against hooks, but you can do it against a straight punch. But typically he just doesn't do it right. He gets hit all the time. His defense is bad, like genuinely bad. And some of it's to do with the issues with the high guard that I discussed in the Oliveira versus Holloway breakdown, where I feel Khamzat's pain, because he and I have similar builds, like our frames. Like, I got a long neck too, I get it. If you're a long-necked bastard, it's hard to have a good high guard, because, you know, depending on your anatomy, there's just too many gaps. And if you're going to have a high guard like that, you need to really be good about turtling your goddamn chin down, your neck in, shrugging your shoulders forward, and really covering tight like that. Be much more like praying mantis-y about it. And Khamzat doesn't fucking do that. His high guard is very just open and vulnerable. And as much as he has a good eye for an opening in terms of landing punches, he doesn't have a great eye for defending punches. And it's bad. Okay, like, look at what Burns did to him. Look at what Usman was doing in rounds 2 and 3. Look at what Dricus did at points in the fight. Like, he's very vulnerable. So that's my overall assessment of Khamzat's game. You know, that's his setups for the takedowns. That's the takedowns he does. That's his mat return sequence. That's his, you know, that's the straight jacket hold. That's how he sets up his chokes. The rides from the back, breaking down the wrists from the referee position, like the body triangle, everything. And in terms of offensive strikes, I didn't really cover this. Offensively, as much as his defense sucks, you know, and as much as he likes that one counter, offensively he's okay. Like, he's got decent kicks. He's got a pretty good stiff jab out of both stances. He is kind of a southpaw who will switch stances. Decent, a little bit like a Kamaru Usman that way, decent, just kind of 1-2. He has an okay check hook off the right hand. If you kind of crowd him, he'll just lean back and throw that. That can land sometimes, it's okay. But yeah, just kind of a simple bread and butter, good stiff jab. I like that. But yeah, not that complex offensively. He's got that one counter that he likes, but gets him into trouble as often as not. Okay check hook, but some okay kicks. That's basically it. That's his overall game. My constructive criticism would be to box less. Okay, it's like, dude, your defense is bad. You've got too much of a willingness to brawl sometimes. It gets you in trouble. Like, just use more kicks. So that approach I described where he'll push you away and like kind of wait for you to try to close that distance and then shoot. More of that. More high kicks. Because, a good, powerful round kick on the guard that discourages them from throwing. Again, that keeps their hands up. It gives them something to think about. And if they don't return, if they don't encroach back eventually, you can just walk them back to the fence. If you're just constantly push kicking the guy and kicking their head and they're just backing up and getting pushed back, eventually they're on the fence, boom, you shoot at them. Yeah, perfect. And as far as like punching, like I would borrow a bit out of the Fedor playbook. Like Fedor Emelianenko was one of the best guys at punching into like clinch. He was using his hand traps and his punches to enter the clinch. So what I mean by that is like Fedor would, like if someone's standing like this, imagine if I took my lead hand and came inside your lead hand. So if they're, like this, the lead hand comes and pulls that down, boom, into the right hand. Or pulls down with the opposite hand into the hook. Or, if it were, or you can reach across, so rear hand to lead hand, come in, boom, like that. And then you pummel into the over-under. Like, that sort of hand trap to punch to clinch sequence, and Fedor had, like 4 of those. That is great. So that would be another way to sort of, I'm on the outside, and then I want to close and grapple. I can do that to catch you off guard. Another thing is, if you want to punch someone, I would say instead of boxing with them, just do the classic wrestler power punches. So level change into the overhand. Like I mentioned, he does the outside, the open stance single leg with that. But do the more classic wrestler shoot and just throw everything into the overhand. And they can either defend the overhand or get knocked out. Like, that is classic for a reason. That works for a reason. That would be there for him. Or he can do the Kevin Randleman Crow Cop thing where you shoot and it's a fake, or you level change and it's a fake. It's just there to get them to drop their hands, and boom, you come into the left hook. So it's boom like that. You don't have to be a good boxer to do that. You just need to be a wrestler, And if you're already athletic and powerful and you know how to throw a punch, like boom, you're good. So I would recommend that. I would say more kicks, utilize that keep them back with the kicks, mix in like push kicks to the leg, stomps to the leg, stuff like that. More of that. And if they back to the fence, just shoot at them. More of the, I would play with the Fedor like hand trap to punch to clinch idea. And I would play with the classic wrestler shoot and throw the overhand or level change into the hook. Like I would play with that more and just not try to be a boxer because it's just not happening and it gets them into trouble. So that would be my thing. So that's Khamzat covered. Sean Strickland. And if you've seen the technical deep dive with him and Hernandez, this will be largely review, but that's if all holds up. Sean Strickland's striking is interesting. His stance and his defense are particularly interesting. People can be reductionist with it and say like, oh, he's just a teep and a jab, and he's largely a teep and a jab, but that's still not doing him justice. So let's talk about his defense first. Sean stands in a very weird stance where it's Muay Thai-esque because he's light on the lead leg, his feet are close together, he's standing very tall, but unlike a Muay Thai guy who will compensate for that by like arching forward with his hands high, Sean leans back with that sort of Philly shell guard. And much is made of Sean's goofy, like, kangaroo hand blocks. And don't get me wrong, he does that a lot, and he is good at that. And I think that's a function of the fact that he constantly spars. So he's just got well-trained eyes, and he's comfortable under fire. But as I've said in the past, what makes Sean's defense so good is the fact that he has good footwork. He retreats and then moves laterally. He doesn't take more than a couple steps backwards before he moves off to his right. And that sounds basic, and from a boxing point of view, that is basic. But so many MMA guys, if you just charge at them and get them going backwards, they will just retreat on a straight line. And they will break stance on a straight line, meaning they will, instead of darting back with the same leg forward, they will start shifting backwards and switching which leg is the lead leg, which can make them vulnerable because if they get hit during that stance switch, if they get hit on one foot or if they get hit with their feet close together, they're much more susceptible to being knocked out. Sean doesn't do that. Sean just backs up, and takes a couple steps and boom, vectors off. That's very good. And that can be good against grapplers because he keeps distance well with the teep, he keeps distance well with his jab, and he's got good footwork, so he's kind of hard to pin down. So, like, as much as his stance looks very vulnerable to, like, just being shot on, his footwork is helping with that. And the teeps are helping with that. Like, if someone's constantly lifting a knee up, that can be awkward to shoot on. You don't want, even if it's not like a hard knee strike, you don't want to just dive face first into a fucking knee. He also benefits from the fact that since he keeps his hands kind of low, he's ready to do his main defense, which is underhooks. Like, his takedown defense is overwhelmingly based on underhooks. I compared it to Crow Cop. You know, it's the 101, just dig those fucking underhooks, splay those legs, don't let them get in on your hips. And if your hands are already low, that's easier to do. It's the same way he can defend body kicks quite well because his hands are kind of low. They're there to block, there to catch. He's quite good at that. But before I get into his takedown defense and all that, let me stick to his striking. Yes, he teeps and he jabs. What he wants to do is get the jab going and circle. So what he likes to do is jab and circle and pivot to your right or his left. So if I'm fighting Sean and boom, 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 he's peppering me with the jab, what he wants to do is start angling this way, bop, 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 and peppering me more and more. Now, where this can hurt him is that he has to lengthen his stance to do this. Like I said, he stands in that more Muay Thai stance, weight on the back leg, feet close together. Because of that, he's hard to low kick because he's ready to check at all times. However, he has to lengthen his stance. He has to plant on that lead leg, put weight on it in order to throw the jab. And so he's vulnerable to being low kicked when he jabs and when he circles for the same reason. And he can be vulnerable to being taken down. Like Kamaru Usman actually timed like a single leg entry on him when he stepped into jab, because now all of a sudden he's coming forward, he's lengthening his stance, he's offering you that lead leg, it's there to be grabbed. Now, Sean has gotten better. Like, he looked quite good, I think, in the Hernandez fight in terms of building off the jab a bit more. Because he's done it here and there. Like, he'll hook off the jab, he'll throw an actual, like, Nate Diaz style 1-2 here and there. If he hurts you, he'll open up. Like, and when he opens up, his hands get a lot sloppier. Speaking of Fedor, it looks very like swinging Fedor, goofy arm punchings. Like, he'll do that, and he'll do that if you just cover. Like, if you just do this in front of Sean, he will open up, and he will just punch around. He'll just punch around your guard and fuck you up. Now, I said, like, Khamzat, terrible defense. Will use the high guard, so. You know, we'll save more of that for the breakdown at the end where I say like who I'm picking and how they match up, but just keep that in mind. Sean, he'll do certain interesting things. So he will shift stances, both forward and backward. So he will, as much as I said, he'll retreat and vector off. Sometimes he will step back and he'll look for like a check hook. Sometimes he will step forward. So he'll throw the rear leg teep, and sometimes he'll fake the rear leg teep where he'll lift his knee and he'll do the classic lift the back leg, step down, and do like a shifting, what was a rear punch and is now a lead punch. He'll do that as well. But that's sort of his overall game. It is relatively simple. You know, it's more nuanced, like I said, than people give him credit, but that is most of it. He'll teep. He'll teep the thigh a little bit. I'd like to see more of that. That's like one of my constructive criticisms is like, bro, so if you like teeping so much, teep the fucking thigh more. But he'll teep, he'll jab. If you encroach on him, you know, again, retreat, hand block, vector off, check the kicks, block the body kicks. He wants to get the jab going. He wants to circle. He wants to start building off that a bit. And if he gets you hurt, he's genuinely dangerous. Like he has, I compared him to Nate Diaz a moment ago, but he's got that Nate Diaz-esque ability to, like, once he hurts you, he will just start pouring it on and he will not blow his wad. He will not get fatigued doing it. And he's got more thump than he looks like he should. And you are in trouble if he smells an opening. One more thing I didn't touch on is he has a very interesting counterpunch that he likes, which is, if these are his feet, this is his lead leg, which is his left leg, this is his right leg, he will kind of open his stance up. He'll step out and wide with this leg and kind of throw his head offline and throw this big rear hook. And he's caught a lot of people with that. If he feels like you're coming in, if he feels like you're getting sick of being on the outside and you're going to come in with a 1-2 and really commit with your hip, he will just, boom, bam, lean off, rear right hook. That has gotten him in trouble because he is opening his stance up. So, like, I think Imanov just sort of tracked him and, like, I can't remember what exactly he did. Like, Imanov, like, shifted stance and caught him with, like, a left cross or something, but he took advantage of the angle and, boom, hit him perpendicular, which is a vulnerability of breaking your stance like that or opening your stance like that. So that's Sean's overall striking game. His takedowns, again, or his takedown defense, rather, again, it's overwhelmingly he wants underhooks, wants to sprawl, wants to splay his hips. He'll do the post, the just push on the guy and keep the hips away. That's more a way to not even so much punish, but just defend against someone who shoots from too far away, who shoots a shot they shouldn't. It's mainly the underhooks. If you get him down, in the past, he's fought more like a jiu-jitsu guy, like in the Kamaru Usman fight, which was many moons ago. Sean acted like a jiu-jitsu guy off his back. Like he would get to the referee position, get to the turtle, get to all fours, and he would fucking Granby roll to guard. He would just sit in guard. He would look for arm bars and things like that from guard. And even at one point, like, Usman had him smushed up against the fence, which, if you don't know, like, this is just like a classic problem for jiu-jitsu guys is if you're going to work off your back, you need room to move, like side-to-side windshield wiper style, and you need room to expand and to curl and everything. And if your head is smushed up against the fence, and the fence is right here, and they're just standing over you in your guard, you have no room to work. At that point, you need to let go and start getting up. You can't work guard. Or you need to, cheating or not, grabbing the fence or not, you need to somehow push off the fence and turn back to open space. You need to do one of those two things. You can't just sit there. And Sean was just sitting there, and that's probably a function of him being like 25 when that fight happened. But in any case, he was just acting like a jiu-jitsu guy on the ground. Now, that could be interesting against Khamzat because, again, I said it's guard passing. Khamzat has shown, like, an aversion to grappling with, like, jiu-jitsu guys. Like, when he was in Gilbert Burns' guard, Gilbert Burns went for an armbar at one point that wasn't even set up or anything. It was just quick. It was just like a quick attempt. And Khamzat stood up and was like, fuck this. We're going to fight on the feet for the rest of the match. Like, so he's shown, like, an aversion to taking on serious jiu-jitsu guys. But, Sean is not the jiu-jitsu guy that Gilbert Burns is. So therefore, even if he tried it, it might not be discouraging in the same way. And B, Sean has just not operated that way on the ground, like, ever since. What I've seen since is Sean doing the bread and butter sort of alternative to turtling. So what I mean by that is typically what you see when guys get taken down and they want to get up, they one way or another go to turtle. They one way or another turn away, get to all fours, elbows and knees, hands and knees, whatever. They get to that position, that turtle or referee position, and they try to stand up. The other thing you can do is not work guard per se, but the other thing is to not turn your back to the person. The other thing is to put your hips, or is to keep facing them, put your hands on the floor, scoot your hips back to the fence, and from there start getting up. And that's overwhelmingly what Sean prefers. So what he'll do is, and this is just kind of 101 like MMA get-up shit at this point, but what he'll do is he'll scoot his hips back, he'll get the overhook, that sort of whizzer, he'll use the other hand to plant, he'll splay his feet, he'll start standing up, and then with that hand he was planting on, he will then fight the wrist, get wrist control, get bicep control, dig the underhook, and Sean is just looking. Sorry about that, the memory card was full. This turned into probably the longest technical deep dive. But in any case, Sean he's looking to get to either get wrist control or bicep control and then get the underhook, and he'll either use the over-under and turn you off the fence, or he'll pommel for the double under and use that to turn you off the fence. Once he turns you off the fence, if he's got over-under, he's going to try to then get double under. But in either case, he wants to get double under. He wants to get really strong head position and then separate. And that's what he wants to do. I've talked about how his clinch game leaves a lot to be desired in terms of landing strikes. And I mentioned that going into the Fluffy fight. In the Fluffy fight itself, he, of course, landed that knee, and he was doing a little bit more strikes in the clinch in general. But overall, he mostly uses the clinch to get double unders, pin you against the fence, get head position, separate. That's overwhelmingly what he does. So that's Sean's game. That's his striking, that's his defense, that's his takedown defense, that's his get-ups, that's his clinch work. That's Sean's game. How does this match up against Khamzat? What's interesting about this is that Sean's approach to getting up is something Khamzat has barely faced. And I watched every single one of his UFC fights, in prep for this. And only one did it stick out to me where this even happened. But like I said, most people will turn and give up their backs when they try to get up. And sometimes Khamzat forces that to happen because you turn for some other reason. You turn to limp leg out of the single leg attempt, and boom, he's on your back. But in any case, when Khamzat gets people down, they overwhelmingly try to do turtling style get-ups. Again, what Sean does is the opposite. He stays facing you like as if you were going to play guard, but instead of playing guard, he scoots his hips back, gets the overhook, or overhook on this side, plant, get up, splay legs, dig, get under it. That's what he does. That is a sort of common thing, like Max Holloway does that. I described that in detail in the technical deep dive for his fight with Charles, and I described what Charles does to punish that specifically. But we've just not seen that much from Khamzat. We've not seen him have to deal with that very much. However, he did deal with it a bit in round one against Gilbert Burns. And he dealt with it quite well, because Burns had that overhook. And basically the way Khamzat dealt with that was to do the reverse leg ride. So the typical leg ride he does is where it's like he's trying to get in front of your leg. He's trying to put a hook in as if you were trying to take your back. He's got his first hook in. He typically leg rides in that way. But you can leg ride with the outside leg, and in that situation you're sort of, instead of hooking the leg, you're sort of pulling it out straight as if you're knee barring their leg. So if I pull it. This is why I want the channel to grow up a bit so I can give you guys more fight footage here so you guys can see what I'm fucking talking about. But in any case, imagine he's up against me and I've got this overhook. He's pulling my leg out straight and he's sitting on it and he's more facing me rather than being alongside me. That's what he did to Gilbert Burns when he was in that position that Strickland typically goes to. So, again, we've only fleetingly seen Khamzat be in that position, whereas that is overwhelmingly what Sean likes to do. Excuse me. But what we saw from him in that position was good, in terms of what Khamzat did offensively. We've also seen Khamzat in that same fight with Gilbert Burns have to deal with the over-under position on the fence, which is another position he's rarely ever in. But we saw it there, and what he did was he just dropped on the legs. At some point, they were hand fighting. He was pinning Burns against the fence. At one point, he just dropped slow, went for the single, hoisted it up, went for the trip. So again, even if Sean can get to that underhook position on the fence and he's trying to use it to either connect his hands, get heavy, turn him over, turn him so that Khamzat's back is on the fence, or get the second underhook and then do that. If they're in that position, there's a good chance Khamzat will just lower himself and go for the legs. So, and the thing I didn't mention with Sean, when people go for single legs on him, his defense is kind of lacking. I think he mostly just pushes on their head. He gets their head outside, he pushes on it, gets heavy, hops on one foot, keeps his base, and just waits for them to give up, kind of. I don't think that's, granted, that's not turning and giving your back to limp leg out, which is typically what people do when Khamzat single legs them. But nevertheless, that's just not great single leg defense. So, like, in that position, I assume Khamzat will improvise something to deal with that. So, if you can't tell, I am leaning towards Khamzat. And beg your pardon, I skipped the constructive criticism for Sean. I have lost track of my place a couple times here. I apologize. This is, if you can't tell, I did put a lot of research into this one. This is already the longest deep dive I've done. And I'm very interested in this fight. But as far as like constructive criticism for Sean, again, I did mention teeping the thigh more. I would say just trying to build off the jab more. Just trying to get more going offensively. It doesn't have to be crazy. But again, just, put the fucking two behind it, put the hook off it, do all three, jab, hook, cross. Like, do that a little more often. I would say jab the body is like not a bad idea either to mix it up. If we're going to constantly, if everyone knows that's coming, vary it up a little, vary the angles up a little. It doesn't always just have to be by, it can be an up jab, like just play with it a little bit to keep them guessing more and then build off it more offensively with the actual power shots. That's what I would say. But circling back to the matchup itself, in terms of Sean's preferred double leg defense, which is just digging those underhooks, that could work. Don't get me wrong, but Sean's athleticism has held him back in the past. So, like, for example, in the first fight with Dricus shot a double on Sean that was just naked. Sean did get an underhook, but it didn't matter because Dricus just blew him over, basically. And it's like, that's a mix of the shot being so fast that Sean didn't react quite quick enough, and also a fact that, like, Dricus is just like the faster, more powerful guy. And it's like, if Dricus can do that to you, Khamzat can definitely do that to you. Like, on the feet, Khamzat will be there to be hit. Again, if he just does this at any point, Sean will open up on him. It is trickier because Khamzat does largely fight southpaw, and Sean has not fought a lot of southpaws, and it is harder to get your jab going against southpaws. However, Khamzat's defense is so bad, I don't think Sean will be. If Sean is given extended periods of time on the feet, I don't think that's going to keep him from landing at all. The fact that Khamzat likes to fight southpaw, I don't think that'll matter. I could see Khamzat landing well on Sean at points, especially early on, because Sean, again, he's not the most athletic guy, he's not the fastest guy. I've seen him, as good as his boxing defense is, I have seen him just eat flush shots when he fights someone a lot faster than him. So, like, Imanov at points did just come in and land on him, and Sean, like, you could just tell Sean didn't see the shit coming. It wasn't often, like, his defense still largely held up in that fight, but it did happen here and there. And Khamzat is so fast that as much as his defense sucks and as much as his striking is, like, kind of one-dimensional, if Khamzat just comes in with a 1-2 as fast as he can, there's a not meaningless chance that Sean will just eat it. Now, Sean's very durable, and Khamzat has some knockout ability, but, he's knocked out one guy at middleweight, so it's like, I'm not too worried that Sean's going to get knocked out or anything. My guess is that that Khamzat will win by decision. I am picking Khamzat to win. I think he'll win probably by decision. He could get a finish. He could ground and pound him. He could submit him. Sean's very hard to put away. His grappling is good. His defensive grappling is good. I know that people are doing the, like, MMA math thing where they're saying, like, look, Dricus got the better of the grappling against Sean a little bit, and Dricus got mauled by Khamzat. Therefore, Khamzat's just going to maul Sean. It's like, no. Dricus' offensive grappling is way better than his defensive grappling, and Sean largely shut down Dricus' offensive grappling. So Sean is going to put up more resistance, I think, to Khamzat. I think he'll have a harder time than he did against Dricus. Now, Khamzat fought at a more measured pace against Dricus. He didn't blow his wad. However, he's still kind of, like, he was still tired by round 5, so it's like, fucking Dricus threw him Okay, like if I remember correctly, Khamzat has a body lock, and Dricus turns and does a fucking Harai Goshi. I think that, or an Uchimata, does one of them, and gets it in round 5 because Khamzat's tired and he's just giving him all the forward momentum, and boom, he just takes advantage of it. Like, so there's room for something to happen. And again, like Sean, if he gets you hurt, like what if that happens? Like what if it's round 5? What if Khamzat's getting tired? What if he shoots on Sean and Sean does get the underhooks and he doesn't get taken down and he hoists him up and he turns him around and he starts throwing on him and Khamzat's just doing this and just getting lit up and Sean's like, and just knows the opening's there and doesn't fatigue himself and picks his shots, which he does very well. It could happen. Sean could get a late finish. I could also see Sean winning a close decision. Like maybe, the first 2 rounds are clear and they're dominant and they're like bordering on 10-8s, but none of the judges actually score them 10-8s. And round 3 is the turning point. It's like a McGregor-Diaz thing. And round 3 is very close and it maybe goes to Strickland. And then rounds 4 and 5 are just Strickland rounds, but he doesn't hurt, he doesn't get the finish at any point. And it goes to a close decision. Like I could see that happening. However, I do think the most likely outcome is a Khamzat decision. He could get the finish, but Sean is so seasoned. His defensive grappling is very good. His endurance is very good. He trains at a good camp to prepare for this kind of fight. Like, he's hard to put away. Like, I don't think he's going to get finished. Could, and again, I'm just picking Khamzat. So for my own satisfaction of being correct in my prediction and getting back on the winning path prediction-wise, I'll take a Khamzat finish. Don't get me wrong. But I think your best bet is a Khamzat decision. So that's how I see it playing out. Again, like I think Sean has some interesting things to offer defensively. Like we'll see how the get-ups go. But, and we'll see if he can keep enough distance and use his footwork enough to make the shots a little harder to set up. We'll see all that. But, we'll see if how well he can land on Khamzat. We'll see if Khamzat ever gets tired and hides behind his guard and just gets opened up on. But like in general, Sean is not that big of a power puncher. He's a volume guy. He's just going to be there to be shot on in general. We've seen him get overpowered when strong, fast guys shoot on him. I just expect Khamzat sequences to hold up. I expect Khamzat to shoot in, get to the back, and from there, sure, Sean can fight hands fairly well. We'll see if that comes into play. I didn't mention that, but he does fight hands decently from the back. But like, I am expecting him to get the Khamzat treatment more often than not. So that's who I'm going with. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I missed anything. If you think there's any factor at play that I'm overlooking that's going to sway it one way or the other. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know who you're picking. And let me know which technical deep dive you want to see next. Because I was kind of looking at the cards coming up, and I'm leaning towards just doing 2 for the White House event. So I'm leaning towards just doing Gane versus Pereira and Justin versus Ilya, and just doing 2 for that one card and spreading it out, rather than doing 1 for any of the upcoming fight night events. But if there's like a cool matchup on one of those fight nights and you want to see it, let me know. Okay, so take care.